Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
And welcome to the Tracer Rounds podcast. And you're on Military Broadcast Radio, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's voice is to Gunnar Nelson, of none other than the band Nelson. I'm so excited to have you on. You don't know, I've been the biggest fan forever. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show tonight. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. And hello to everybody out there listening.
Well, so I know you have some veterans in your family, one being your grandfather, Tom, and then you have a cousin, I think, that was in the Marines.
That's right. Well, once a Marine, always a Marine. So, yeah, he's
Right.
a former Marine. So, he actually, I think he's technically a captain right now, but his wife
wow.
outranks him. She's a colonel. So,
Oh, wow.
and she shoots better than him, too. He looks like the archetype for G.I. Joe, what they used to make those dolls look like in the 70s, man. I mean, total jarhead, but awesome guy. His name's Danilo. And Danilo Voyne. And our grandfather on our mom's side won the Heisman Trophy at Michigan in 1940. His name was Tom Harmon. And he went on to fly for the Army Air Corps in World War II. He was shot down twice, actually. The first time was in a light bomber / transport down in Guyana. And the second time was over in the China-Burma-India theater. He actually got into a dogfight in his P-38 Lightning, and there was a flight of 22 Zeros, and he was in a flight of 4 P-38s. He got 2 and 1 probable, and the problem was our grandfather actually flew against the Japanese the same way he played football. It was called running the rapids, and General Chenault told him not to do that. He said you could not outturn a Zero at the time, and he was just very aggressive, and he went for it. And the last they saw him, he was under canopy. And he was being strafed by a Japanese Zero, and they just assumed that he was dead. The parachute actually landed in a lake, and that's the last they saw of him. They sent the letter home, the telegram home, and Grandpa Tom actually walked out of the jungle about a month later, burned over 60% of his body, having used the scarf on his neck that had the map of China our grandmother had given him before he deployed, and his compass to find his way out.
Oh, my goodness.
But other than that,
amazing.
we have total wimps in my family. Other than that,
No, I wouldn't say that. I definitely would not say that. So you are a part of a 3-generation of entertaining family, right? So your grandparents were Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, and they had a show. And then your father was Ricky Nelson, who was a teen idol, and he kind of was a trendsetter of his time, being a teen heartthrob, and then playing one form of music and then kind of turning to country pop. And he wasn't quite accepted in that genre just yet because they expected one thing of him. And so he wrote the song Garden Party about that transition, didn't he?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, allow me to brag to set things up for your listeners out there who are so young they have no idea where I come from or who I am at all. Okay, so some backstory as you touched on. Our grandparents were Ozzie and Harriet Nelson. They actually went down in history of, I mean, they're in the Smithsonian as representing 50s ideals, but they had the longest running television sitcom in history at 435 episodes,
Wow.
over 14 and a half years. They started out as a big band. Our grandfather was a band leader, and he met Harriet and hired her to be his chanteuse in the band. And the story goes that their banter in between songs kept on getting funnier and funnier and longer, and the set started getting shorter. So Red Skelton, the big radio hero of the era back in the day, we're talking the 20s going into the 30s, caught their show, suggested to his bosses at ABC that they check them out and give them their own radio show, which they did. The radio show was incredibly popular. That turned into a television show, as I mentioned. Our father grew up on that show. It was a real family playing a real family. They were scripted. Our grandfather, Ozzie, was a Renaissance man. He holds the record as the youngest Eagle Scout in history in the Boy Scouts of America, still at this day at 12 years of age. He graduated with a law degree from Rutgers, was quarterback of the Rutgers football team when it was Ivy League at the time. Just an incredible man, and ran a very successful family. As I mentioned, our father grew up on that family show. He was on that from the time he was 6. And 10 years into that run, he was the first guy to utilize the power of television to market music. He started singing on the end of the Ozzie and Harriet show, and no one had really done that up until that point. Remember, rock and roll was brand new, as was television. And I guess the popular thought of the day, as far as the suits were concerned, is if kids could see somebody singing on TV, then they wouldn't go down and buy the albums. And our father proved them wrong. He actually was a juggernaut. He wound up selling 1 billion singles in his career. And there were only 2 artists in the 50s, 2 rock and roll artists to have #1 albums, only 2. And that was Elvis and Ricky Nelson. To describe how popular he was during his day, man, I don't know how I can touch on it. It'd be like, wrap up Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, and all of the Backstreet Boys, and you'd scratch the surface. The guy was massive. And Matthew and I grew up in a household during his second phase of his career. You mentioned basically he established himself so powerfully in the beginning of rock and roll as one of the pioneering rock and roll icons that when music changed, when the Beatles came into America and the artists were expected for the first time to write their own material that they sang, our father chose to reinvent himself rather than go on the fair circuit and sing all of his oldies. He put together what was considered one of the first true country rock bands by the Country Hall of Fame with a band called the Stone Canyon Band, and wrote that song Garden Party after showing up in 1971 at Madison Square Garden, not looking the same anymore. He had his country rock band. He'd been touring that for like 5 years, but got talked into performing at the Garden as part of an oldies festival. And I guess everybody there in 1971 expected black and white TV Ricky from the 50s to pop off the screen, and they couldn't accept the change, and they booed him off the stage, and he wound up writing a song called Garden Party, which had this, it was all about that experience, and it had this tagline in the chorus: you can't please everyone, so you got to please yourself. It was basically his middle finger in a velvet glove, and a very, very strong man. And Matthew and I grew up and had some hits of our own. We sold about 6 million records back in the day when spandex was still a privilege and not a right. And we had really long hair, and we had a really, really good time because it was before cell phones.
Yeah, and so if anybody doesn't remember what Gunnar and Matthew looked like back in the day, like I said, I watched the video. I was an MTV girl, and these videos were just it for me. I spent hours and hours watching them.
Well, we spent hours and hours making them, so I guess we're square.
Right. I guess so. So let me guess which one you are. So you're the one in the white and Matthew's the one in the blue, right?
I don't know what you're looking at right
Oh,
now.
you can't see the screen. You can't see
I
the
can't.
picture.
I can't. I'm getting a static shot and I'm seeing myself, but I'm
Oh,
not seeing you. I wish I could. Describe it to me. Is it the album cover?
so it's the one that has a. So I think it's Matthew in a blue jacket and you're in a white jacket,
No,
and
reverse
you.
it. Reverse it. I think
Oh, really?
Matthew. Yep. I think you called it wrong. I think I'm the guy in the blue jacket.
So that's what's interesting to me too. So one of the reasons we wanted to highlight you tonight too is because you have a book coming out today, and it's on Amazon. And I put it in the comments, and I actually ordered it, and it's due here tomorrow. But I was pre-reading it, and one of the really neat stories in the book is about how you and Matthew almost got mixed up at birth, basically. And your sister Tracy was the only one to figure it out, and no one would believe her until they actually um, compared the footprints, and then they decided that she was right.
That is true. A candy striper had accidentally gotten us switched when we got our first bath and they'd taken those bracelets off. And I almost wound up going through life as Matthew and not Gunnar. And for anybody that knows the two of us, they know how absolutely profoundly wrong that would have been.
Well, my son is named Gunnar too, and it's actually because I was so I loved your name, and I was such a big fan of your band and of both of you and Matthew that his name is Gunnar.
That is an incredible honor. Thank you for that. That's amazing. Now, did he get any ribbing when he was growing up with a really interesting name, or did he grow up in a class with a lot of other kids that had interesting names too?
Well, so he gets Hunter, and I forget the other names he gets. So if he goes to Starbucks or somewhere like that and he orders a coffee, it's always Hunter. It's never Gunnar. It's always something other than Gunnar.
When you go to Starbucks, you've got to learn the hack. What you have to do is really mess with them. You got to, like, when they ask your name, you got to say like Rumpelstiltskin or Agamemnon or something like that. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I just tell them Bob. I get it over with.
Just hope there's not another Bob and he doesn't get your coffee.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's really cool to hear. Growing up like we did, and actually having that kind of success, we were still pretty young at the time.
Yeah.
Matt and I'd been playing since we were little kids. We got our first instruments when we were 6, and started playing the LA club scene when we were 12. And it's funny that a lot of people kind of like co-branded us with that Sunset Strip hairband scene. But that wasn't the case. Matthew and I had started 10 full years earlier in the LA clubs with all the skinny tie bands. You were either like a hardcore power pop band, or you were from the first class of the punk rockers like Fear and Bad Religion and all that. And Matthew and I found ourselves, we loved both styles of music, and the music we were making in the clubs was really kind of a hybrid of both. And it wasn't until years later that, at the time I was a drummer, Matthew was a bass player, and he was up front singing lead. And when our father passed away when we were just 18, we took like a year off we call it the lost year. We kind of went there, and that's in the book as well. And I took the opportunity to reinvent myself and learn how to play guitar. I'd never played it before, but I think there's something to be said about a concentration of focus. I grew up in a John Wooden era. I went to his basketball camp, and it's important to note that I've got Nelsons on one side, which are all about entertainment predominantly, and I've got Harmons on the other. I mentioned Grandpa Tom, the fighter pilot, but his son is, our Uncle Mark is Mark Harmon from NCIS, and he was the starting quarterback of UCLA back in the day. And that family was all about intensity and achievement at the highest of levels. And so I could honestly say, after writing the book, and by the way, there's no ghostwriter involved in this. This is all me and Matthew. This is from the horse's mouth ×2. I realized that I am very much an equal part Harmon and Nelson, and hopefully I get the best parts of both. But I think both have really helped me moving forward in life. That perseverance and that tenacity and that focus and stuff. I think you really need that in the world nowadays, certainly in the entertainment business, which is not all that easy. And part of what this book dispels is the preconceived ideas that Matthew and I did have it easy, or it was handed to us, or we were like Nepo babies or trust fund kids doing this as a hobby. For us, it was a lot like it was for anybody else that had gone on to have rock success. Really, it was our only way out. Our life, our upbringing was certainly not Ozzy and Harriet. Our parents actually raised us in that very selfish era, right after women's lib and the hippie movement and all that. And we were latchkey kids, grew up in the early 70s and 80s and stuff with zero parental supervision. And making music really was our happy place. That was our safe place, kind of having each other and having a shared love for music that helped keep us sane when, our mother's alcoholism got bad and violent, and we could escape into that. And really honestly for us, that was the only thing we'd ever wanted to do since we were little kids and saw our father perform from the side of the stage as little babies. We knew the what we wanted to do. We just didn't know the how or the when, but we did have a true north in our compass.
Yeah, I mean, you are amazing musician. You and your brother are amazing musicians yourselves. I mean, you've proven yourself over and over. And Love and Affection and After the Rain and all those songs are just amazing. And they're timeless. So you can listen to them now and think that they're current hits because just the way they're written and the way they're sung is just in a style that everybody can relate to.
Thank you.
It resonates with people. So I think. And I get to do the radio side of this station too. So I've loaded all your songs up so I can hear them over and over because I love your music so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, when we made that first record, the thought was we didn't really listen to anything that was going on the radio, that was happening on the radio at the time. We weren't trying to chase a trend. Right. And if you think about the traffic that we were in, I mean, everything around us that we were competing with at radio pretty much was coming from a really hardcore like blues background. I mean, our number one competition on our label as far as like promotion money was concerned was Guns N' Roses. And they had just really broken with a vengeance. And Matthew and I come from a completely different sensibility musically. We grew up in Southern California, and it's really kind of like, the whole Laurel Canyon scene. That was happening when we were growing up with Crosby, Stills and Nash and Linda Ronstadt and Jackson Browne and Joni Mitchell and all of those greats that happened in a little club in Santa Monica there called the Troubadour that our dad's Stone Canyon Band was frequenting quite a bit. That was a big influence. And also the arena rock that we grew up loving, just listening to the Foreigner and Queen and Heart and all that. And I think when you listen to Nelson, our first record, After the Rain, you can hear the blend of both. It doesn't sound like AC/DC. It doesn't sound really blues oriented. It sounds more of like a heavy metal version of the Hollies or something. And that's what we were going for. We were trying to be timeless. So that's a really great compliment. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I just enjoy it so much. And going back to the book a little bit too, I love how the book is written by both of you. And so it's written, so some chapters are yours, they're your words and your perspective. And then some are Matthew's and his perspective. And then some are collaborative. They're both of your perspectives together on a subject or on a topic. So I love that you both wrote it and put your own thoughts into the book so that it kind of resonated with both sides of the experience of being the band Nelson and being Ozzy and Harriet's grandsons and Ricky Nelson's son, just kind of gives the full perspective. And it's a story, honestly, and you're here to tell about it, of resilience and fortitude and, just somebody that is resolute in knowing where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to go. And that book tells all about that. I just love that you did that and allowed people to really see who Nelson is.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, look, I think what I learned through this whole thing, what the through line has really been, starting with Grandma Harriet's quote when we were starting out. She said, boys, just remember this family has never been about being in the entertainment business. We've been in the connection business. So keep that in mind. If you want to do what I do and what we've all done, just keep that in mind. And we always have. But in our journey, contrary to a lot of the Hollywood statistics that came before us, which we have every right to be, which we wouldn't give anybody the satisfaction of writing us off as, we actually realized that our attitude was our superpower. Matthew and I have always been incredibly grateful for everything that we have. And we are living in an environment in the world, unfortunately, at least in the civilian world, that is all about entitlement and a lack of accountability. And Matthew and I are not about that at all. As a matter of fact, we've had so many well-meaning friends around us that we write about in this book as well. It was a great example. Our friend Jack said to us once, I've never seen any two guys able to make more out of nothing than you two. And I said, thank you. And he said, I didn't mean it as a compliment, but that was the difference. That's what we took. We took it as a compliment.
Yeah.
And we've just found that, man, through thick and thin, that's why we wrote our first record and entitled it After the Rain. It is truly about, I know it sounds trite, but it's true. It's about finding the silver lining in every dark cloud. And I think that's where the gratitude really does come in. And I'm not saying it's been easy. It's been really hard. I mean, my family's been canceled for 125 years before they coined the term for it. We're veterans of that. We know how to handle that and do that. But, ultimately, what we realize when we have people coming up to us after shows, whether or not they're with their great grandparents, their grandparents, their kids, I get these great stories of how they were impacted positively by different members of our family. And we just take being a part of that family and the legacy that what it means to people. We take that very seriously. And we, with everything that we do, we just always do our best. I'm not saying we're perfect, because we're not. But, and I'm also not saying this is the easiest business to be in, because it's not. But Matthew and I have never done any of those questionable deals. We've never been to any of those weirdo parties. We've never done any of that stuff. We've done the work.
Yeah.
And that was one thing our grandpa, or actually our Uncle Mark, said to us: they can't take the work away from you. And, just you go about living your life, playing your shows, talking with people, shaking hands and telling stories and making them laugh, hopefully. And you put your head up after 30 years and you realize you got some pretty impressive stats cooking.
Yeah. Well, you can tell you're really genuine, and genuine people tend to, persevere and do really well, because when you're just putting on a happy face, or a public facing face, to kind of, sell whatever it is you're selling, it doesn't last. And so you can tell when somebody is a real person and real genuine and really loves and is part of what they do. It resonates in you, and you can see it in everything that you do and everything that you say. I can always tell how genuine and how much you really care about what you're doing and the music and what you're putting out in the public space.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think we all should, right?
Yes.
We learned through that whole, whatever the heck that whole COVID thing was. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that. You learn in a moment like that, because in our business, we didn't know if we were ever going to play another show again, ever. I mean, we were basically sidelined for 2 straight years. And in a time like that, you realize a couple of things. One of the things I realized is how little I really needed in order to be really happy. They took all of our stuff away. They took all of our distractions away.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're really left with is your family, your friends, your loved ones, your God, and your art, or whatever it is you're passionate about. In our case, it was our music.
Right.
And, we took that advantage of that time that we were landlocked for the 2 years. We restored The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet into 4K high def, spent $1 million doing that. That was great.
Wow.
And we made a new record, which was really cool, because the legendary director James Gunn just picked one of the songs out of that record. It was called Lightning Strikes Twice. By the way, if you like the After the Rain record, get Lightning Strikes Twice. It was actually put together as After the Rain Part 2. If you like that record, you'll like this one.
I do.
And Mr. Gunn loved it, and he picked a song called To Get Back to You that we co-wrote with Mark Slaughter of the band Slaughter. And we brought in our friend from Toto, Steve Lukather, to play the solo on it.
Oh,
and he actually made it the finale episode of his TV show that he does on HBO with John Cena, the wrestler. There's a show called The Peacemaker. It's their #1 show.
yes.
We were the finale episode. He wrote the whole episode around John Cena's character meeting his love interest and having their first kiss at a Nelson concert. And the episode was called Full Nelson.
Yes, the video is really good, and the music's really good too. And I already loaded it up on our radio side, so
Oh, right on.
we're already playing it.
Check out the video, because James Gunn directed the video. It was quite an honor.
It's very good. So speaking of videos, I forgot to mention that you were part of Voices That Care back in '91 when
That's right. That is right.
Yeah, when the war kicked off, and with a bunch of other artists. I hadn't realized how many people were actually in that video. Michael Jordan, like all these different people. I'd forgotten how inclusive that was, of all the different genres of the day were all in that video. And so I thought it was really neat that you guys were a part of that and really sending that voice of hope overseas to our troops.
Well, thank you. Well, you cast your mind back. That was right when Desert Shield had just become Desert Storm.
Mm-hmm.
And Matthew and I were asked to present an award on the American Music Awards. And we had just started out. I mean, I think, I'm not even sure if our first single had dropped. Yeah, our first single, I think, had dropped. And we were asked to do that show and present an award. It turned out we wound up going out and presenting Garth Brooks with his very first award ever. No one had ever heard of Garth Brooks before.
Wow.
And we walked out on, before we actually went out there, the culture at the time, well, let's just say Matthew and I have always been very patriotic. We bleed red, white, and blue. We always have. And we've never been shy about expressing that. But back then, as far as Hollywood and as far as the music industry is concerned, the only thing that people really knew as far as like conflict is concerned, we hadn't really had a conflict that was very public since Vietnam. And we all know how that went as far as like PR was concerned. So Matthew and I, in a vacuum, pretty much decided, hey, we don't know right now what everybody's going to feel about this. But I had a particular jacket made for the event. It was floor length, and no disrespect intended at all, but it was the American flag in sequins. And we went out to do our presentation, and the first thing that I said was just I wanted to send our love and support out to our brothers and sisters who are deployed overseas and don't know if they're going to be getting back home safe or not. They don't know what they're walking into, but just know that you're going to be coming home to open arms and a lot of love.
Right.
And then the tide of that show really turned after that. And I'm happy to say that whether or not it was planned or not, we were the first domino to fall and sway the tide and be very supportive. And David Foster, a legendary producer, was in the audience that night and obviously saw that and asked us to be a part of a project he put together called Voices That Care. And we got together on one song. It was kind of like a We Are the World kind of thing. But the thing that really excited us was they said, if you're part of this, we will send 100,000 copies of your single. Remember those singles, little cassette singles?
Yeah.
We will take whatever song you want to send overseas for free. And so we did. We donated 100,000 cassette singles of our song After the Rain. And we sent them all over there. And the greatest joy was years later having people who were deployed, people who got those singles over there and listen to that song. There's a particular line in After the Rain, which is, don't be afraid to lose what was never meant to be. And they just said that to them, that song gave them hope. And, that's, to me, that's the power of music. That's what music can really do. It can comfort you and be your best friend at times when, you don't have a lot of friends and you don't feel like you got a lot of time. And the fact that Matthew and I get to work in that particular world where we come from a world where we really care about everything we write. We take extra time in the studio to make things just right. I know it's an AI world now. I know there are a lot of people that are just pressing a button and making fake music. And that's always going to, now that the horse has left the barn, that's what it's going to be. But none of those people are going to ever understand the kind of joy that Matthew and I feel when we write something from our hearts that connects with people in that kind of a way and also lives on. I mean, this is 40 years ago, 35 years ago, something like that. And that's a long freaking time for something to have impact. But to me, that's like as close to magic as you can get.
Yeah, I mean, well, music in general is a universal language, so it transcends time and space, in my opinion, and it unites people regardless of language, because good music is good music, and having that melody and that tune and just the lyrics just bring people together, in my opinion. And I don't think the world would be as nice a place if we didn't have music, honestly.
Can you imagine? I mean, I know now that there are a bunch of generations that look at music as the background noise in a video game. And that's really such a disservice to them, because coming from a time when the music was the main thing, that was the thing. People would get excited to go see their favorite band who was coming into town. That favorite band was making a record and it was coming out, and they'd run down to the record stores when there was such a thing. And you couldn't even preview the music. You just hoped that the rest of the album was as cool as what you saw. Or what you saw on MTV or you heard. And what we wanted to do then is not rip off kids. We wanted to actually make a record where there were at least 10 singles on an album to give them the value of their money. And I think we did that with that first record. It's kind of neat because you're right. I think it does stand the test of time. It's got its own unique category. It makes it difficult for us to find bands to co-tour with now.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, what is it? Is it pop? Is it metal? Is it rock? And the answer is yes. And it's kind of the same kind of thing I'm sure that the band Boston experienced when they came out. They just made a record in a vacuum, and Tom Schultz made what he heard in his head, and it didn't really fit any kind of category, but people just knew that they loved it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, music is good music. It doesn't matter what genre it is. If it speaks to you, that's what's important.
My collection is so vast and varied. I've got so many different things that I listen to,
Yeah.
but it really depends on my mood. If you notice, like I mean, I know this. If I want to feel the same kind of innocence and possibility that I felt when I was 13 years old, I put on Supertramp's Breakfast in America, and instantly I am lakeside at Mount Meadow Ranch summer camp. And I've just gotten my first kiss behind a tree with a cute girl, and I am there. I'm there. It's like a
Yes,
time machine,
it
just
is.
bang, it just brings you there, which is great.
Yes, I love Supertramp, Breakfast, and then I love Breakfast in America, all that stuff. I mean, those are my songs too, and my collection is probably as diverse maybe as yours. Like country, I like pop, I like
Yeah.
rap, I like easy listening, some R&B. Probably the only thing I'm not really like crazy about is opera, but I suppose if I was in the audience, I could like it. But
Well, I'm sure you can appreciate the talent and the technique
yes,
that
yes,
goes into it when you hear
absolutely.
like Pavarotti sing. It's like, okay,
Yes.
that's wow,
Yeah,
but
she's amazing.
yeah,
Yes.
but it's not the first thing that you grab when you want to, go grab a red Solo cup and have a party with some of your friends. So I get that.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, I know that you've talked a little bit about it, and I don't know if you're wanting to talk about it on the show, but you lived in the Errol Flynn house, and
Yeah.
and it was haunted, I would say, by
Oh,
Errol
it wasn't
Flynn.
haunted, girlfriend. It was haunted. Capital H. I'm saying that unapologetically. That house actually really was. It was possessed. And
Yeah.
I think once upon a time I did a podcast with a great guy named Jordan the Lion, and
Yes,
I
on
talked to
Days. The
yeah,
podcast was called Days. Yes.
that's right. And I talked a lot about that. But yeah, well, this house in particular was a legendary Hollywood Hills home. It was owned by Errol Flynn. For the listeners out there, he was the original Robin Hood in those old movies. And he played a character also called Captain Blood. And he was known for being dashingly handsome and a total playboy. And he had I mean, there was a book that was written about him called My Wicked, Wicked Ways, which you should
Mm,
actually go check out. But
okay.
the guy had some closets, or some closets, some skeletons in his closet.
Yeah.
And this particular house, he built it from the ground up. And no joke, it had hidden passageways in it. It had two-way mirrors in it in compromising places, all of that. So the guy was a total perv. And that house, boy, it was weird. When our father passed away, we were all living together. My dad, when we turned 18, we moved up to the house, and we had about 6 months with him before he died. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to take the downstairs. You guys take the upstairs." And it was great. We had a really great time kind of reconnecting. Our dad was a very busy guy when we were kids. He was touring up to 300 days a year.
Wow.
And that last 6 months, for some reason, he didn't do any touring. And when he died, it was weird. Matthew and I were okay in that house for like a week or so when we were making all the funeral arrangements and coming and going. But we had this moment where we went back to the house, and it just felt like the house wanted us to leave. It just said, "It's time for you to go, boys."
Wow.
And it was spooky and scary. But I mean, we're talking about, apparitions, full body apparitions, half body apparitions constantly. The smell of perfume, random perfume, just kind of like wafting through the room. Uh, the cold chills and stuff. I had one night when I was asleep, I felt it was like as if somebody sat on the bed,
Hmm.
and I looked down, and I saw the covers and stuff. I had a big down comforter, and then it was like somebody was crawling up the bed on both sides of me and parked right over me, and I felt frosty breath.
Oh my goodness.
It was my time to leave. That's when we
Yeah.
split. I always ask myself, I said, why is it we see these horror movies And at the first sign of stuff like that, why didn't they just leave? Right.
Yeah,
And then you realize the movie would be 5 minutes long. That's why. But
right.
holy cow. No, I mean, that was a pretty spooky house.
So didn't you say something about when you and your family went to look at it originally, that you were down in the parlor where there was a piano and your parents had gone up the stairs and they were like, "Where are you?" And you'd said, "I'm down here with playing, I'm down here sitting with the guy playing the piano." And they were like, "Wait, what?" Like, there's nobody playing the piano, but like it was an aberration of um
I don't remember it quite that way. I remember the piano playing all by itself.
okay.
And I never knew if it was our father playing the piano or not, because he was actually a pretty good piano player. He taught himself how to play ragtime. And our great grandmother Gigi apparently was a hell of a ragtime player. So it kind of
Okay.
ran in the family. And I was downstairs once, and the way the house worked, there was like a little spiral staircase
Uh-huh.
right by the kitchen, and the kids' rooms were upstairs. The master suite was off to the downstairs, and to get to that, you'd have to walk through the big living room, and then there was a little parlor, and that's where our father's piano was. That's where he used to write
Okay.
songs and play. I'm actually looking at the piano right now. It's right here in
Oh,
my
wow.
music room,
Oh,
um,
wow.
complete with it's an old spinet console piano. It's a white piano. It's still got the cigarette burn stains from when he lit a cigarette there when he was playing.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, I was on my way down the spiral staircase to go get some grub in a kitchen, and the piano started to play, and I didn't think anything of it because our dad did that all the time.
Yeah.
And then I guess our dad was upstairs doing something with our mom and called for me, and I just kind of had this thought, pops upstairs, who's playing the piano?
Oh my goodness.
And I looked down the hallway, and there was nobody there, and the keys were moving.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, it was pretty freaking haunted.
And then you lived in another like it was like a farmhouse and you had some visits from a ghost of the property. And you talk about like there was 3 different deaths that were in that house
Now
and
you've done some research, because this is not in the book What Happened to Your Hair that we just released. This is a whole other thing, but you're giving me an idea.
oh,
Maybe I should write a book about
I
that
think you
stuff.
should. I think you
Huh.
should.
Yeah, well, the house that we lived in before then, it was actually pretty cool. It was a little farmhouse. It was one of the first houses in the San Fernando Valley. Our mother was really good at renovating homes and bringing them back to their former glory. And that house was built, I think, like it was in 1880 or something in the San Fernando Valley, which for LA is actually pretty old.
It is, yeah.
And the way this was done, it was a 3-level house, big giant farmhouse kind of thing. And our mother had subdivided the entire top floor on one occasion when our father had gone out on tour. He always used to come back to surprises from our mother and their accountant. But she had taken the opportunity to separate all those, the big giant top floor into individual bedrooms for their 4 children. And I was in kind of like the middle one and all that. And I talked to my mother about this years later, because we were really young when we were there. It was probably like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
And I remembered one night being in my little bedroom, my little twin bed. These rooms were not big because, like I said, this one space had been subdivided. So it was like more of like a little like cowboy crib or something. And my dog Amelia started going nuts, barking at the door, totally alerting. Her hackles were up. And I remember waking up and sitting up in bed and looking at the door, and the door opened, and a half body apparition walked in. It was or floated in, actually, transparent kind of thing, but you could definitely see her. It was a woman, and she floated into my room, and I was absolutely terrified. And I know I'm sounding like a complete and total nutbag right now, but bear with me. And I remember her like mouthing some words and stuff like that, and then floating out backwards. The door stayed open. And I ran down the hallway to my mom's bedroom, pounded on the door, and my eyes apparently were like wide and all this stuff. And I told her what had happened, and she just told me to go back to my room, and that's all I remember. But apparently, I talked to her about that right before she passed about 10 years ago, and she said,
Oh, wow.
"Well, you only remember coming to my door once. You were freaking us out because this was happening every night for a month.
Oh my
Every
goodness.
night for a month, woman would float into your room, according to you. And I finally just said, tell her that you're safe and you're fine and you're going to be okay. And then my mom did some research on the house, and it turned out you were right. There were 3 deaths that occurred in that house. They found old newspaper clippings and stuff. And one was because they did have a barn there that one of the horse boys actually got dragged to death in the barn once. Another person just had another accident by falling off the chimney when they were repointing the chimney. But the third and final one was the mistress of the home was apparently poisoned by her servants. And when they did the research, they figured out that the place where she died, her bed would have been exactly where my bed now was. So they kind of like figured out, well, maybe that's she's just scared for you and trying to warn you. So when I finally did tell her, hey, everything's fine and I'm going to be okay, she never came back. But again, even retelling this, I sound like a total freak, but it actually happened.
No, MJ, who's one of the hosts, she said that she totally gets it. She said that sometimes they just come to give you a message. And so, like you said, I think it was just that she was worried for you and wanted to make sure you're okay. But I'm telling you, as a little 5 or 6 year old kid, I'd be freaked out. I'd be not wanting to go to bed. I'd be like, no, Mom, I'm not going back in there.
I think I've been kind of an open door to a certain extent. I know that when I write songs, I don't feel like I'm the one writing them 100%. I feel like I'm getting out of their way. They're kind of floating around in the ethers and they come through me. Mm-hmm. And if I'm smart, I kind of get out of their way. To me, it's the same feeling that we all feel in that moment right before we fall fully asleep at night. Yeah. Or when we wake up first thing in the morning, we're not totally awake, that twilight state. That's what songwriters get into at will. They do that all the time. When they're just sitting in the room, they can do that. Wow. And I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time really with one foot on planet Earth and then one somewhere else. But I've been really, really prolific lately because I don't question the process. Yeah. But I've been talking to some of my artist songwriter friends, and I found that that's kind of a through line, that they actually are a lot more sensitive to paranormal things happening. And in my case, it seems that it follows me around a little bit because, I had that issue at that house and then I moved to the Flynn house and had those issues there. So maybe it's not the houses is what I'm saying. It might not just be the houses. It might be me.
Well, some people are just from hearing other people's stories, some people just are sensitive to otherworldly things, be they good, be they bad, they're just like they just have a intuition or a feeling or a sensitivity, like you said, and they can connect in some way to this other realm. And so I don't think it's weird or unusual. I think there's just some people that are more in tune and more adept to hearing that inner self, and then hearing the voices outside that inner self, those ones that are kind of hovering around us, and most of us don't hear them or know about them, but there are some that do hear them and know about them.
I believe so. And you know what? I feel protected at all times. I'm a proud believer, so I'm not in any harm, but it is a little disconcerting when you're sitting there getting a good night's sleep and you actually feel someone sitting on your bed that's not there. That is a little weird.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So does Matthew kind of have that sensitivity too, or is it pretty much you?
No. Matthew does. Look, we're identical twins. The difference for your listeners out there, it's not just like a normal twin. Like with the advent of fertility drugs in the 70s, there are fraternal twins everywhere. People are having litters, for crying out loud. But that's basically individual eggs that it's like being womb mates. The only thing you really have in common really kind of is your parentage. But you can be very, very different. You can have a guy twin and a girl twin. You can do all that stuff. We actually started out as one cell that split. Right. So we're actually, we share the same DNA. And we're actually a kind of twin called mirror twins. So when our cells split, Matthew got the right side, I got the left side. So I'm left-handed, Matt's right-handed. And we complement each other too, just as far as our energy is concerned. I mean, in my case, I was born without a filter. I don't have one. It's just not there. You always know where I'm coming from, but I can be coarse with no intention at all. I'm not trying to be a jerk. It just kind of finds me. Matthew is is his delivery is very sweet and very measured and a lot wiser than mine. But how that really kind of works as far as our twinship is concerned and our artistry is, I like to look at myself as the locomotive, and Matthew is the engineer in the coal car. And together we really do complement each other.
Yeah.
I like getting my hands dirty. I like doing all the work in the studio. I love writing. I love doing all of that. Matthew would just rather be on stage. And I get that. It's cool because of the fact that, he won't let me microscope in on things for too long. I can get lost in the process. And Matthew's got this great perspective from a distance, and they really do work together. So I guess Lennon and McCartney had the same thing. I'm not comparing myself to them at all, but the great thing with great duos in rock and roll, and if you look at all the best bands that are out there, they really had two people that were really driving each band. If you think about it, they were complementing each other. And in the case of the Beatles, here's the great difference, right? You hear it in a song. One, Paul writes, I gotta believe it's getting better. It's getting better all the time. John, it can't get no worse. That's
They're
that's the
balancing.
but that's the difference between the two and how they come
Right.
together. And it's a little sweet with the sour,
Mhm.
and it keeps things interesting. It really does. You got, Mick and Keith, and you've got these great teams and stuff. And I was really blessed that God literally brought me into this planet with a great partner from inception. And it works out. I mean, we're not the Everlys, which is great. We actually really do like each other and get along still to this day. I'm not saying we don't have some great arguments every now and again, because we do, but we always make up right after it. And it's part of the process. We keep on pushing each other, all the time now. And, hey, look, when you've been doing this for, well, 40 years, and in our case, actually 50, but 10 of those years people don't know about, you can kind of tell that we mean it. This is not a fad. This is not a hobby. This is a calling. This is what we've always wanted to do. And thanks to you and all of your listeners out there, Matthew and I have had the greatest job in the world in our lives. I mean, Grandpa Ozzy used to call it's like having a license to steal, when you get to do something that you love that much and you get you at least compensated enough to be able to pay for the mortgage and stuff. It's the greatest thing in the world. And that's all I ever wanted to do. So again, finding gratitude in this, and now for the first time we're authors, it was probably the hardest thing that we've ever done. We've worked really, really hard, but writing our memoir and doing it without a ghostwriter and digging really, really deep and going to those stories that we intentionally had not wanted to talk about after we went through them. It was really tough. It was 20-hour days for 3 weeks straight. It was over 500 pages, over 50 chapters, and we wrote every one of them. And
That's
we
awesome.
we just we left nothing on the table. We decided if we were going to do it, we were going to really speak from the heart, take off the filter, and make people laugh and make people cry, and really explain a lot of things that we've had to really keep under wraps up until now. One in particular, the circumstances around our father's plane crash, which, despite what the press at the time said and the rumors that they spread, again, we're back to the whole cancel culture thing. It was as simple as the fact that our father was flying a World War II era DC-3 that developed a leak in a fuel line that fed the heater in the back that heated the entire plane. And it filled up the belly of the plane over many months. And just that one New Year's Eve, the spark in the cockpit just set the whole plane on fire. And they were able to land it, but smoke inhalation took everybody before they were able to get out. That is the truth of that plane crash. There's no more glamour to it. There's no more salaciousness. These were a bunch of guys that Matt and I grew up with, and our hero that died on the way to play a show when they actually could have been at home with their own families. And our dad lived and died for rock and roll, and the press was brutal at the time. There was a rumor that was started that drug use on the plane or freebasing or something had something to do with the plane going down. None of that was true. And when the NTSB report came out 8 months later and exonerated everybody, of course, the press buried it on page 30 in the Wednesday edition. They didn't want to admit how wrong they actually really were, but our families had to carry that around this whole time because there was a gag order. We couldn't say anything at the time if we wanted the insurance companies to pay out the families of our dad's band members. we couldn't talk about it. We had to wait till the NTSB report came out. And again, this book actually answers all of that too, which is, as his son, something that we really wanted to do. So selfishly speaking, those are the serious moments. The not so serious moments are, the stories from the road back when spandex was still a privilege and not a right. And Matt and I looked like a couple of hot Swedish chicks, and there was no cell phones meant culpable deniability. You weren't tracked, and you couldn't get incriminating photos taken of you at any time. And those were great days and a great age, because we were 22, to be in the world's top rock band. We have stories, and they're all in the book.
And there's lots of great stories. And one story, I know we'd only got probably about 9 minutes left, but one story was that you and your brother were supposed to be on that plane, but at the last minute, your dad said, no, I don't want you to come on that plane. I want you to meet me in Dallas. And so the plane did go down in Texas, and I am in DFW area. So, that whole scene just really resonates with me and makes me really sad to know that it happened here in Texas. But your dad, he had said, you're going to fly with us on the plane because you guys had been wanting to fly, and you'd been asking, and you told all your friends you weren't going to go to any New Year's Eve parties because you were going to go see your dad in Dallas. And then your dad at the last minute said, no, I don't want you on that plane. And you were like, why? Why? And finally just you gave it up and said, okay, Dad, that we'll just stay here. And then that happened. So I think maybe your dad, like you say in a couple of interviews, that he really had that sensitivity too, and knew when something wasn't quite right. And he just said, no, we're not going to do this.
Well, you have to understand that was so uncharacteristic of our father. That phone call that he made. Matthew and I had our bags packed, and that was the whole point, is we were going to actually fly to Guntersville, Alabama to meet our father. He was doing a gig there at a place called PJ's Alley. And we were going to fly on that beautiful plane. It was a World War II era DC-3 that he had bought from Jerry Lee Lewis. Yeah. Okay, so we're talking the big thing like you see in Indiana Jones with the twin propellers and stuff. It's not a small plane. Yeah. And it's usually quite safe. They made a lot of them. They were used as troop transports in World War II because of how safe they were. And unfortunately, they say that a lot of different elements have to conspire just perfectly in order for any air disaster to occur. You take one of this confederacy of events out of that equation, and it doesn't happen. Like in our dad's case, maybe he had a premonition. Maybe there were mechanical issues on the plane that I hadn't heard about or he hadn't told anybody about. But something made him feel like he needed to call us, and he didn't feel comfortable with us being on that plane for some reason, enough so that he made us a phone call, and we had our bags packed. We were going to go to the airport to meet him. And he said, absolutely not. If you want to spend New Year's with me, you're flying commercial to Dallas. We'll have New Year's Eve there, and then you can fly commercial back home. We said, but the whole point of us doing this and not going to our friends' parties, because it was the first semester they were away at college, was to go hang out with you. So I guess we'll just stay here, and we'll revisit with our friends. You're going to be back in a couple of days. And then, of course, he never got back.
Yeah, that's so sad. But you've said it before. I've heard it in interviews that, that you feel like God had you not go because you're here for a purpose. Like you're here to do something that you're already doing it, obviously, but that he, and I heard the story about Miley Cyrus and Billy Ray Cyrus too, where there was problems with that plane, and they were like, no, Matthew and Gunnar are on the plane. We're going to be just fine.
Yeah. Billy Ray, that's in a whole other chapter in the book. It's a completely separate air incident, because doing what we do, we have to get there. And we've lost a lot of us in plane incidents, but that's a fascinating thing. But to cap this, the last chapter in this book, I wrote, kind of wondering, because we're still alive, how do we end this? I wrote a chapter called What If Pop Hadn't Died?
Yeah.
And I got really deep into it. And I really thought, now don't get me wrong, I'd give everything for 5 more minutes of tangible time with my father.
Yeah.
But I know that if he had lived, and it's again in the book, I figured out that I'd probably wind up having a good life, but I would have been a drummer in his band, backing him up. Mm-hmm. And Matthew would have probably played bass in his band too. We would have had fun, but we never would have written Love and Affection or After the Rain or More Than Ever and done our own thing. And I've got a whole stack in my safe from people who said that song After the Rain has like saved them and really helped them. And none of those letters would be in my safe. None of those lives would have been touched. It's kind of like that whole butterfly effect thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a weird thing to go there and really think about that. But to me, that's one of my favorite chapters in the book is the way it ends, because it does end on an up note, because it's a great example of being able to find that silver lining in such a dark cloud. But that's what the Nelsons have been able to do and help people do for the last 125 years. And Matthew and I are just honored to be the next generation doing it.
That's awesome. This right here, I don't know if you probably can't see it, but this is the book cover. What Happened to Your Hair is the name of the book, and it is on Amazon, and they have Kindle options, and they have the hardcover, and mine will be here tomorrow. I'm so excited to get it.
Oh, cool. Well, my favorite part is the back cover. I wish you could see that, because we chose which quotes to put on the back. Most people put these like glowing, oh, they're amazing and all that kind of stuff on the back. Matthew and I put the best of the worst quotes we've ever heard about us.
I can't wait to see it.
Like the first one I love. The first quote on the back cover is, "I was married to their father. I'm not impressed, Mom."
I did read that quote before. Oh my goodness. So I know you're touring pretty soon. I tried to see the last time you were here in Texas. It was a couple years back, and you were in Granbury, and you were doing Ricky Nelson Remembered show.
Love that show.
And I
Yeah.
wasn't able to get there, but I know you're going to Cedar Park, Texas in February 12th. So I'm going to try to make it down to that one, because I really, really want to see you live.
Well, bring 1,000 of your closest friends. And I'm going to
Okay.
say this about this book. First off, thank you for the time. Big, huge love to everybody out there listening. We love you. We support you. If you're away from your loved ones, we're going to keep the home fires burning for you. We're waiting for you to come back safe. And also remember, too, for the folks that are home right now, that this particular book is a perfect gift to replace all of those candles, those lame candles you have stashed someplace for the people you forgot. This is a lot more fun. It has 0 calories and one size fits all.
Definitely. I have your little commercial. Do you want me to play it for your book?
You got a commercial? Go for it.
Yeah. Let me play it real quick. Here
All
we
right.
go. Let's see right here.
It's the 14th of December, only 2 days away from the release of our book, What Happened to Your Hair, and I am here to represent and present this book in a little snippet form for you from chapter 14 called Living on a Prayer. I didn't know it at the time, but after the dust had settled on the whole Saturday Night Live appearance, I was one seriously messed up unit. I admit it. I snapped. Who wouldn't? When you look at that tally sheet for an 18-year-old Nelson twin, life so far had been pretty damn bleak. From the drug and booze addicted waste of the skin of a mother to a perpetually adolescent and absent father, to having to kick, bite, and scratch just to be able to make music. Mom blamed her divorce on the music business. I mean, God forbid she take any accountability and blame herself. We were also punked and friend-zoned by all the girls throughout high school because we were the post-divorce poor kids in a rich neighborhood. Then there was the rug pull of reconnection with, and then the spectacular loss of our father hero. 3 years before we were legally allowed to drink a beer. Holy shit, y'all. It would have been the undoing of any lesser men, but it's clear that that's why God put me and Matt in the world together. Our path was going to take 2 men to survive. And don't forget to pre-order your copy of What Happened to Your Hair, available on Amazon right now.
A countdown where we went back, we actually counting back for 2 weeks, and I promise my readings were more dynamic. I promise. It's a lot more fun than that. That sounded like a dirge. It's not that way, folks.
No, it's not at
Okay.
all. It's very, very good. I do highly recommend that anybody go buy the book and give it as a gift, read it, keep it for yourself and read it. Gunnar, I really appreciate you being here tonight. I am so stoked to get to talk to you and to just hear more about your family and more about your music and more about the book. And I just thank you for your time so much tonight.
Well, thank you. God bless you and everything that everybody out there listening does for us. We're grateful for you. And for everybody that's listening, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and nothing but blessings to you and your family. Come home safe.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.